So let me introduce the panel first, and then we'll speak about the theme and get started. So starting with my first panelist, Loretta McCarthy. She is the managing partner of Golden Seeds, which is an angel network based in the US, and they are trying to fund actively women entrepreneurs all over North America. Thank you so much, Loretta, for joining us. Thank you. My next panelist on my left is Sibongle Sambo. Thank you so much for coming to GES Hyderabad all the way. On my right here, I have Udit Sheikh. He is the MD of two companies, Setco as well as Transtadia. Transtadia is into building sports infrastructure, which is going to help India hopefully get more medals in the Olympics. Thank you so much for being here. And by that, what we mean is, what are some of the do's or don'ts? What are some of the insider tips and tricks about how to present yourself as a founder, how to pitch your idea when you're trying to fundraise, and how do you motivate people when you're trying to build companies? Because no startup can be done on its own, and some of these soft factors that we will speak in today's panel go a long way in defining the ethos of a company, the culture of a company, and eventually the success of a company. So with that theme in your perspective, let me get started with our first question. Is the idea bigger, or is the proof of concept more important? And this is a long debate that has been going on in startup circles forever. I would like Loretta, with her experience as an investor, to tell us what is more important. Is really the brilliant idea better, or is it execution that is more important?
Of course, you're always looking for both. You want a brilliant idea where they have some proof of concept. I will say that it is virtually impossible to make an investment in something that is an idea without some measure of a proof of concept. It is almost impossible, but I think that the main advice we give entrepreneurs is accomplish as much as you can before you go seeking money to investors, to prove that there are some customers that will say yes or have said yes, hopefully more than once, or that you've built out a business or a product that has some asset value, some value to the asset. Maybe you've gotten intellectual property rights in some way. Because the more you can show real progress, the more likely investors will be to consider your company. The more it starts with a great idea that is really seductive from the very beginning, the more interested people will also be.
And the only cases where you will find ideas getting funded will most probably be with individuals who have enough experience. So what motivates people to stay tuned? Is it solving a problem, or is it creating wealth? And perhaps you can answer this question for us.
Yes, thank you so much. There is no either or on this particular question, but the first thing is that all entrepreneurs get into business to make money. So we want to create wealth, because wealth opens opportunities in so many fronts, not only for you as an entrepreneur, but for your family and your community at large. So it's important that when you start a business, you start with the end in mind, and that is to be profitable and create wealth. So, but the other component as well comes into play, in that once you've made your money, you want to remain relevant in business. You want other people to buy into your vision.
So this one is brilliant. I think Udit will answer this well. So tech is causing disruption everywhere, and we speak about digital a lot here at the GAS Summit also. But the question is, do all businesses and startups have to be tech enabled? I mean, do they have to be really tech centric in order to be funded? And since you are in the business of sports, maybe you can tell us a little bit of your perspective on this.
No, I think that's an excellent question. And from my perspective, I really believe that technology has an overlay across every business. I don't think that there is any business which can get the scale that is required unless you have a technology backbone. If you want to disrupt and enter into a market, you need technology. So for example, we're building stadiums. Now, everybody's first question is, why the heck are you building a stadium, these empty white elephants? but we convert them. We have retractable seating, we have convertible stands. So I don't use it for one sport, I use it for sport, entertainment, retail, hospitality. And when I did that, I've disrupted the market and I've suddenly opened up a $14 billion opportunity in India. Similarly, even if you have a juice bar, I mean, I have a juice bar in my stadium, but if I have to scale it up and I have to get to understand what people like in which part of the country, you need the technology backbone which allows you to scale up. You need your supply chain in place, you need the front end in place. The auto business, which is my other foot is in that business, there is a emission norm change, with noise, vibration, harmonics. Now, each time there's a change warranted by the government, unless you're on that edge of technology, you will be obsolete. And with what Elon Musk is doing with electric cars, again, he's disrupting with technology. So, you've got to be at the edge of it, and I think technology is going to be the backbone. It's just not fiber optics connecting one business to another. It's about how you can change the pace of the business. But that's not enough. You need to then design appropriately and then deliver it. So execution is as critical as technology.
It is true that even if you are a fashion business or you are a service business, there is some element of technology that you simply must use today, or at least reach out and find people that are pretty sophisticated in how to use technology tools, because it's the most efficient way to usually to reach your customers and to communicate with your many constituents.
India and South Africa have got so much similarity that we all developing countries, and we have found that small and medium businesses come from the rural areas, and we have found that the entrepreneurs that live there are older people, that have got ideas or businesses that run from the rural of the most rural areas. How do we get them to use the technology to be able to sell their products and services? And what we've seen in South Africa is that those businesses, they partner with those that can.
Right.
Their children are very good in technology, and they use their children. I think we need to go back to the basics and not talk about technology as if it's this elephant that other people cannot have access to. So we need to go back to the basics and say, how do we help that old lady or that cooperative that is in a rural area to be able to sell their products in America, And we've seen that our Department of Trade and Industry in South Africa is very vibrant, and they go back to the rural areas and take the technology there so that the products could be sold all over the world.
All right, so moving on from this to the next very important question, and we'll start with you, Loretta, but I'll want everybody to pitch in actually on this question.
We often say to entrepreneurs, never forget the fact that when you're pitching your business, many of the people are sitting there thinking about their own bank account and the fact that they're going to write a check out of their own capital, whatever it is, to you. And you hand over a check and say, good luck. And so you're kind of a stranger to that person, even if you've had a few meetings. And the most important thing out of all of it, at least in my mind, is that I have the confidence that you are someone that can be careful with the money that you're given, and also that you will be able to implement the plan that you say you're doing, that you are going to proceed and create a plan and execute really effectively.
But I think I think more than charisma, I think the person who's pitching the business has to inspire a strong component of trust. Because if they cannot trust you, if anybody can be a smooth talker, they can talk their pants off. But how the heck are you going to actually get that person to open that wallet and take money and put it in your business? They've got to have trust in you, and therefore, I think the business plan, the way you put it together, the cash flows, all of that is important. And I come from a very strong thought process, which is top line is always for vanity, but it's the bottom line which is for sanity. So you've got to, you've got to have a very sound business plan and a component of trust. Otherwise, nobody's going to invest.
I'll add my 2 cents and experience in this. So, like Loretta mentioned, and everything in life, whether it is interviews, dating, whatever it is, your first time presentation skills do matter, and your communication skills do matter. And I take this topic with a little sensitivity because I come from the tech background, and I know personally a lot of people, and I would put myself in one of those buckets, are nerdy by nature. Long term, it will work if you have an amazing business plan and you are executing on it. And yes, if you are an introvert, if you don't have the most amazing marketing or communication skills, you will have to learn them, just like you will have to learn finance and accounting. So that's my 2 cents to, nerdy tech founders who don't find marketing their product that easy.
But what really happens, and this really happens when you're not in the room, you as entrepreneurs, you come in and you pitch and you leave, and then people sit around and say, what did we just hear and how do we feel? A lot of the conversation revolves around how do we feel this person will do in building people around them, building a team, building a company, and taking the company through many stages of growth with possibly dozens or hundreds of thousands of people. And it can be, the person can be nerdy, they can be charismatic, but we do know, those of us who have done this for a while, we do know that if a company experiences a lot of turnover, you hire people and you can't retain them, and then they leave, and then you get more, and then you try to bring more people on board, and then you have to teach them. It's really destructive to your ability to grow the company. So the more you can have really a reputation for attracting really great talent, making them motivated to be there and stay and help you grow the business, you're not going to be paying them a lot of money. So most likely. So they're there because they love working for you and for the organization that you're building. And the more you can have people that are more really likely to stay with you in the long haul, the healthier it will be for your business. So it's a matter of kind of looking at management skills or just interpersonal skills. How good is this person going to be in managing the company?
I go back to the couple of previous answers. All these people who join you at the first go, they are like investors. They're investing themselves, their careers, their lives into your business, and therefore you've got to give them that same respect and that same kind of, I would say, time and value which you would give to any outsider investing hard cash into your business. Because sometimes businesses can take off very quickly. Sometimes they take a very long time to take off, and you need those core players with you. And that first team is people you trust. So I think it's equally more important that you are able to pitch it to them and use them in a manner in which you can learn from them, because you can't do everything. An entrepreneur's plate is always exploding with things, and therefore you've got to take some of that. A burger and give it there, and you've got to take the cheese and put it over there, and so everybody will digest a bit of it and run it with you and grow it. So I think people, they're the most important part of your business. And
but what I've done in my company is that I've also in other areas invested in character. And how did I invest in character? When I started, some of you heard my story at the main plenary, and there's this one lady called Samkel Siwe. She is a friend to my sister, and she used to come to the office. I didn't employ her at that time, but she came in at 8 o'clock with everybody in the morning. She cleaned the office. Every time I had business meetings, she came, offered my guests tea and all that, and I saw potential in her. And I told myself, I'm going to invest in this child. And she came from Soweto, which is a very popular township in Johannesburg. She came from there, no experience, never worked before, So I said, there is so much potential here. Let me invest in her. Initially, I took her to do business training. She became my personal assistant. She set up all my meetings, made sure I arrive on time. I packed all my items that I needed for my meetings and all that. Then one day something said to me, let me just ask her, Samke, do you want to become a pilot? And she was like, I've never even been in an aeroplane, So I said, but is it something that you would like to do? She said, okay, yes, let me think about it. But no, ma'am, I'm not thinking about it. Yes, I would like to do it. She came back, and immediately I sent her to for training. She is a qualified pilot today, She also liked the technical space. I've taken her to America several times because now she's exploring getting into the technical space. So those are the kind of investments that you make when you invest in character as opposed to this acquired skill. And it works.
Great. Well, those were some amazing remarks on how. So, moving on to another important topic, which is pivoting. So, when you know that you're pivoting for the right reasons versus the founding team is just plain simply confused, and so I'm happy to hear whoever wants to start on this topic. I think it's an interesting topic, and I have some comments to add.
Truth. I will say that in my firm, we've invested in 150 companies, and I know most of those companies, and I can say that not one of them had the same business plan 1 year after we invested in them than when we invested. And that doesn't mean that they pivoted multiple times or that they were in a radically different business. But that's the phase they're in. They get their first outside money, they have a plan, and then they have to tinker with it, and sometimes that's pivoting. But without a plan, without a clarity in your own mind about what you believe is the best course of action, you can't really evaluate how you're doing and whether you should or should not change course. So in my mind, it has to start with the best plan that you can construct, with imperfect information. That's all. You don't have complete information at the beginning, but then you just keep evaluating along the way, because the decision to pivot is a really big decision, because that could mean totally different use of suppliers, different manufacturing, losing the capital that's already been put in the business, and all of a sudden that experiment didn't work, so we're hiring different people because what you're doing now may not require the same type of skills. So it's a big decision to pivot, but it's also really important to realize that the people who invest in you are, in a way, investing in what they believe is your judgment. And that's one of the hardest things to determine during the time that we do due diligence on a company, because you're asked many questions about how you might make decisions in running your business. So it's, to me, pivot is almost another way of saying kind of when do you kick in with judgment that says it's time to kind of modify how we're doing this.
So I have my own experiences to share here. So I started MobiKwik in 2009, so it's about 8 years ago. And the first couple of years were quite confusing because myself and my co-founder were both first-time entrepreneurs. So we started with the concept that we wanted a wallet where people could park money and then pay all their bills from one single platform. Now that was all good, but back in 2009, when you were trying to add funds into a wallet, the connections with the banks were not that great. And the payment processors in the Indian market were not that great. And I found that shocking that the success rates were as low as 60%, 70%. And just FYI, I had come back to India to start this company after working at PayPal, where the success rates were 99.6%, right? So it was very hard for me to understand this. So what we did is that we built our own payment processor. And it took us a year to build that own payment processor. And at that time, everybody in the market was like, oh, is this MobiKwik team pivoting? Are they going from a consumer-facing wallet business to a B2B payment processing business? And even we were confused at the time that what is the right thing to do. But essentially 2 years later, there was complete clarity in our mind that this B2B payment processing product that we have built is going to help us build the consumer wallet business we want to build, because there's no other backend platform which allows us to do payment processing so efficiently. So eventually it came to us that consumer payments is our calling, but if you need to build allied products or services to make your business successful, it's just a question of making sure you take your team along with you. They know what the long-term vision is. And I think pivots of this order are very important and useful and must be taken into stride by the team, the founders, investors, etc., because they could ultimately add to the value of the company. So that was my experience.
Yeah, that's great.
The projects team and the scaling team are remarkably different. And you need to have that one person in your team who can recognize that what is that time when you have to press that accelerator, change the gears and get into that pace. Like in our company, I made a very stupid mistake, right? We were building the stadium, and one of the things that we ended up doing is we expected that the guys who spent money were the same guys who could earn money. And we didn't change gears fast enough. it was a bitter mistake. I lost 3 to 6 months because you have to get the right people on board. And in today, 3 to 6 months could mean a whole of a huge cash flow in your business. So you really need to have that bunch of guys who can scale, and they're very different from your project team. So that's what I keep in mind. I mean, that's my learning.
Great.
Actually, we live in a world that is changing constantly. So when you have a business plan as you start, in the next 2, 3 months, it might change completely, and you might have to, diversify your strategy, diversify how you do things in your company. For instance, when we started, I started because we saw a need for the business people to travel within Africa easily, and they can maximize on the time instead of flying from Johannesburg to Paris before you go back to Africa into the francophone state. So that was time wasted and a lot of money wasted. So introducing the private jets that will go straight from Johannesburg to Gabon, it was easier. But then the airlines quickly cashed up and created the routes. Then what do? Do you sit with those aircrafts and not fly? You look at other things that you can do that are intelligent, that will enhance your business so that you can remain profitable and remain relevant is what is important in the market.
Right. So you have to keep changing gears as people will catch up to you. Like she's saying, competition will catch up and you have to be ahead of this curve.
I just want to add one thing about kind of the pivoting idea, and that is that so often small companies decide they're going to change or pivot based on their talking to each other. And one of the biggest misses that we often see in companies is that you're so busy with your head down, working at your computer, working in your laboratory, or building your product, that you fail to get out of your office and go talk to customers. And it's often customers who will indicate to you way before your numbers show it that you're on the wrong course, or there's something about your product or service that just isn't working for them, or they're not so sure they're going to renew their agreement with you because of this, and that, way before they've really stopped doing business with you. And it's not only just getting out of the office and going to see those people, it's really listening, being willing to take in that feedback that may not be always positive, but it gives you really months of advance notice that all is not right with how the market is accepting my services or my products, and you can begin to get an advance move on adjusting what you're doing.
Right. Great. So that brings us to the last question we will discuss, and then we'll open it up for all of you. So the last but not the least, and we'll start with my friend from Africa here. What is this mythical thing called elevator pitch? Like, what should be the essential elements of an elevator pitch? I know there are a lot of like web articles and Quora is full of stuff on it, but from your experience, what really works?
What really works is that you must be concise, straight to the point, tell the person who you are or what your company is all about, what is it here to solve. And once it has solved that, what would be the benefit to the client? And that shouldn't take you more than 60 seconds to explain that. And then you can be able to then find investors. So that is the elevator pitch for me. Your company, what does the product do? What problem are you solving in the market? What are the benefits and for the client? Then you go for investment. That's an elevator pitch for me. And I think this is a topic that we can actually also take to the floor, because I guess there are so many people who've got different ideas about this elevator pitch. As you say, that it's all over the web. But for different people, it means different things. But for me, those few items.
What does it mean for you?
I think it's one of the toughest things to do because, you've got so much going on, you're so passionate about your business, and then when you've got to cut out so many things and make it just relevant, as she said, you've got to find those 3-4 items, and, people want to know. I mean, get excited in those 60 seconds, and trying to get them excited for me, for example, about a stadium is absolutely impossible. So I don't try elevator pitches as much, and you've got to be secure about your thinking anyway. So I like to take my time and massage the concept into people. I don't believe in the elevator pitches much, so.
So I think my exposure on this, very recently I started mentoring a few entrepreneurs as they are trying to raise their Series A or seed funds. And what I found is that with all the best intentions, they want to. So you're right. We never get to do a pitch in an elevator so much these days. But elevator pitch has relevance in, what is the email note you're going to send some investor, so that he or she gives you a meeting. So again, you have to write a concise note. You can't be writing paragraphs and paragraphs. Nobody has time to read that. Similarly, you send sometimes a teaser presentation, 2 slides or a 1-pager. It has to give the right messaging. And my co-panelists here have explained what have to be the elements. But in our over-eagerness as first-time entrepreneurs, I think most of us make the mistake. We put in too much content there. There's too much additional info there which doesn't need to be there. It needs to be like, very simply, and you might have heard somewhere like, speak about your product and your company as if you are explaining to your grandma. I think you have to keep it really that dead simple, like 1 paragraph, 4 bullet points, something very neat and simple. I just helped some people, clean up their teasers, and this is what I found, that too much additional information, which is probably from an investor's point of view, like Loretta's point of view, it would be information that she would want to know at the second meeting or at due diligence level. It doesn't need to go there in your initial presentation.